The CEO's voice echoed through the ballroom like the pop of a champagne cork against a bare nerve. To the brilliant minds behind our energy breakthrough, he boomed. The room decked in corporate excess with polished oak floors, imported orchids and dinnerware that probably cost more than Reese Talbot's first used Ford erupted into applause. Everyone raised a glass. Everyone except Reese. She was 47 lead systems architect, and the only person in that room who hadn't slept more than 4 hours a night in the past 18 months. She'd sacrificed holidays, anniversaries, even a knee surgery postponed twice to deliver the clean energy converter that was now fueling this glitzy celebration. But tonight, her name hadn't been mentioned once. She blinked slowly, forcing the lump in her throat back down. Her smile was small, polite, and brutally controlled. She took a sip of the champagne she hadn't asked for. It fizzed on her tongue like betrayal. The CEO, grinning like he'd just discovered gravity, continued. With the market's response, we'll be reinvesting earnings right back into innovation. Of course, that means some expected bonuses will be deferred to Q3. Synergy, now success tomorrow. Reese didn't hear the rest. Her heart had already stopped clapping. Deferred, try erased. The last year and a half of her life were buried inside that converter, missed birthdays, an elbow fracture from a test rig collapse, and unpaid overtime that would violate labor laws in 5 states. Now, her name was gone. Her bonus, too. She scanned the room. No one met her gaze. Not her manager, not the CTO, not even Jenna, the new hire who used to bring her coffee and now sat smiling wide from the main stage. It wasn't a slip. It was a rewrite. And hey, before we go any further, if you're part of the 97% watching without subscribing, maybe now's a good time. Trust me, you don't want to miss what Reese is about to do. Back to our heroine. She pressed her cloth napkin into her lap so firmly her knuckles cracked. Across the room, marketing guy, Derek beamed as someone toasted him for visionary thinking. Derek, the same guy who once asked if a battery could just be wireless. By dessert, Reese's mask was on. She clapped. She smiled. But her eyes cold, calculating, watching. They weren't celebrating innovation. They were celebrating her funeral. In the back of her Uber still in heels, Reese opened the company dashboard on her phone and saw the truth. Her name was gone from the patent filing. Completely gone. That couldn't be right. She had been listed just last week. There'd even been a draft email confirming it, her name on the patent front and center. Now, nothing. Reese scrolled, clicked refreshed. Gone. She stared out the window at the blurred skyline of Houston, the city lights bleeding through glass like streaks of resignation. Her reflection stared back, calm, composed, almost bored. But behind her eyes, something had already snapped loose. She wasn't going to scream, and she sure as hell wasn't going to quit. That would have been too clean for them. No, she was going to learn their rules. Then flip the table they thought she was too polite to touch. Monday morning hit like a hangover she hadn't earned. Reese slipped into her usual spot corner desk, 4th floor, near the always jammed copy machine, and the half-dead snake plant she kept forgetting to water. Her inbox was flooded with back-patting emails. Great job, team. So proud of this launch. Biggest milestone yet. But not one message mentioned her. No, you crushed it, Reese. No meme-filled reply-alls like before. Just static. As if her name had been surgically removed from the story. She logged into the internal dashboard again, clinging to the idea that maybe it was just a delay. A glitch. Friday oversight? Nothing. Not under inventor, not under contributor. Not even a blip in the version notes. The metadata tag, the one she'd checked monthly for over a year, was wiped clean like she'd never touched the prototype. Like she'd never written a single line of firmware or salvaged the power core during that near meltdown in testing bay 6. Now the listed names were Derek Mann, the marketing guy who thought voltage came in flavors. Kelly Rowan, a supply chain analyst with 3 months of experience. Jacob Dean, a junior engineer who once asked if a diode needed batteries. Reese leaned back slowly, palms flat on the desk, vision blurring at the edges. She opened the archive logs. Empty. Tried accessing the Git history of her technical specs. Permission denied. Fine. Two could play clueless. She stood up, adjusted her blazer, and headed to HR like a woman walking across a gasoline-soaked tightrope. The lavender-scented office hit her nose before she even saw the HR rep, Cheryl Bright Smile, LinkedIn networking queen. "Hey, Cheryl," Reese said, voice calm. "Quick question." "Sure," Cheryl chirped. "Do you know why I'm not listed on the converter patent anymore?" Cheryl blinked. "Oh, I didn't realize you were supposed to be." "I can open a ticket," Cheryl said, tapping at her keyboard with nails that matched her lanyard, "but I doubt legal will move fast. They're absolutely swamped this quarter." "I don't need fast," Reese replied, voice cool, sharp enough to slice drywall. "I need transparent. Can you send me the documentation tied to the last update?" Cheryl's smile shifted from friendly to fully corporate. "We don't usually share internal patent memos unless it's cleared through your manager. I can follow up, though." Reese stared at her a beat too long. Then she nodded once and left. No words, no argument. Just silence heavy enough to make the floor creak. By lunch, the company newsletter landed in every inbox with a ding. Front page headline, "Young Engineer Leads Clean Tech Revolution." There he was, Derek Mann, baby-faced, swimming in a blazer that didn't quite fit. Gesturing in front of the converter Reese had hand-soldered the night before the product demo. The article credited his vision, his coordination, and his breakthrough strategy. Her stomach flipped. She scrolled faster, hoping this was some clumsy PR blunder, but then she saw it, inventor of record, stamped beneath Derek's name. No footnote. No shared credit. No mention of Reese. The confusion turned to suspicion, then fury. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a delay. This was surgical. The truth wasn't missing, it had been replaced. Reese stayed late that night, long after the office dimmed to motion-activated shadows, and the cleaning crew shuffled by with lemon-scented wipes. She sat in the glow of her dual monitors headset off slack-closed mouth tight as piano wire. She wasn't after revenge. Not yet. She just wanted proof that she existed in the work they'd stolen. She started with her own project folder, raw, messy, unfiltered. Architecture diagrams. Notes scrawled with her initials. Bug logs in her voice, sharp, sarcastic, laced with precision and profanity. Git commits under her user handle, the one she'd had since Rice University. Then the archives, SharePoint, PDF hell. 40 minutes of digital archaeology, paid-off subject patent contribution acknowledgement from legal. 2 years ago. Plain text per section 14.3b of your contract direct inventorship on qualifying patents includes a guaranteed 2.5% profit share upon commercialization. She pulled up her current HR file, scanned it. Section 14.3b gone, not even 14.3a. The numbers skipped entirely. What replaced it read like oatmeal. All IP developed under company time is the property of Langston Core Technologies. Recognition is assigned at management discretion. Reese didn't smile. She didn't panic. She opened a new encrypted folder and started dragging files. If this moment hits something deep in you, go ahead and subscribe, because what happens next will remind you that the quietest moves often make the loudest impact. There was no Section 14.3b, not even a 14.3a. The numbering skipped like a rigged lottery ticket. In its place, legal oatmeal. All intellectual property developed during employment is the sole property of Langston Core Technologies. Credit may be assigned at management discretion. Discretionary. Translation. We'll give you credit if we feel like it. Sweetheart. Reese leaned back in her chair and let out a single laugh. Dry. Bitter. The kind that fogged up her monitor but didn't reach her eyes. They'd rewritten her contract while she was too busy building their future to notice they were erasing her past. Rage didn't boil. It solidified. She opened a clean partition on her personal drive and encrypted it. Then, methodically, she began copying everything, every schematic prototype model, debug log, annotated blueprint, and time-stamped Slack chat. Anything she touched, edited, or even commented on. It all went in. She backed it up, then backed it up again. Some files dated back years. Others still bore tracked changes from the CTO, the same one who once said, "Let's keep this gender neutral. Maybe don't say her idea during the presentation." That email saved in a folder titled Evidence. At 2:17 a.m., she closed her laptop like she was arming a warhead. The next morning, she looked unchanged. Blazer sharp, hair tight, smile warm. But inside, something colder had taken root. Not panic, not heartbreak. Something far more dangerous. She opened a browser tab. Typed IP litigation attorney Houston woman owned. The top result featured a 5-star rating and a woman in a scarlet blazer with a jawline that could crack concrete. Reese stared at the number, then dialed. That afternoon, she stepped into the CTO's office. It still smelled like body spray and Red Bull despite the new ergonomic furniture and the dying ficus trying to escape its pot. She walked in holding a printed copy of the patent diff log like it was a funeral program. "Got a sec?" she asked, voice flat but civil. He barely glanced up. "Shoot!" She sat down, crossed her legs, and slid the paper forward. "This is the updated filing log for the converter. My name's not on it anymore. I'd like to know why." He finally looked up and smirked like she'd asked why fire was hot. "We had to consolidate names. You're still in the team folder, right?" "That's just internal legal structure." Reese smiled slightly and made a mental note of every word. "It wasn't just internal legal stuff when I signed the original disclosure," Reese said, voice steady. "Or when I presented at the Cleantech Summit. Or when you emailed me last October thanking me for owning the back-end logic under pressure." The CTO leaned back in his overpriced ergonomic chair like she'd asked him to define quantum gravity. "Reese, come on," he said with a chuckle. "You know how these things go. Legal wanted a cleaner list for the press kit. It's not personal. Don't get emotional." There it was. Don't get emotional. The corporate equivalent of a lullaby sung to women who dared ask for credit. She nodded once. "No argument. Just filed the phrase away in the same mental folder as you're too intense. Let's not make this awkward and you should smile more." She rose without another word as he turned his attention back to his Slack window, where a looping gif of a robot pouring a beer played in an endless loop. Next stop, HR. Again! Cheryl was mid-bite into a Southwest salad when Reese stepped in. "I need a formal record of every patent filing I've contributed to over the past 3 years," she said. No small talk, no smile. Cheryl blinked. "That's a little unusual, I'm aware," Reese replied. "But it's within policy, so I'm requesting it." Cheryl offered a pleasant but empty smile. "Of course, but maybe it's worth thinking about what kind of energy you want to bring into Q2. Sometimes it's better to focus on the future, not the past." Reese stared at her like she just suggested fixing embezzlement with essential oils. "I am focused on the future," she said. "That's why I want the records." Then she left. That afternoon, Reese attended the weekly all-hands meeting with a gentle, composed smile that could have been purchased from a mindfulness catalog. She laughed politely at Derek's joke about synergy. Fatigue nodded at the COO's spiel about streamlining and even complimented the UX designer's tortoiseshell glasses. But her eyes, ice. Behind them, gears were turning. She had already wired the consultation fee to Ms. Deber Klein, a Houston-based IP attorney with a reputation for surgical takedowns and an Instagram bio that read, "IP doesn't stand for impressed politely." The NDA was signed. The drive was delivered. And when Deborah opened the files, her only reply had been, "Oh, honey, they seriously screwed up." Her smile weaponized. Reese wasn't finished. She was just getting started. She met Deborah Klein at a boutique law office on the 22nd floor of a glass tower in downtown Houston, an office stacked with enough leather-bound legal codes to crush a jury box. Deborah, clad in sharp stilettos and a red blazer, reviewed Reese's encrypted flash drive like it was a scandal she'd already solved. 35 minutes in, Deborah looked up with a grin that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Sweetheart," she said, Tapping her manicured nails against the glass desk, they left their digital underwear flapping on the clothesline. She turned the monitor toward Reese. The metadata, it sings. There it was. Document after document from early R&D brainstorms to architecture drafts. Each revision showed Reese's name embedded in the file history, time-stamped, untouched, and undeniable. Not Derek, not Kelly. Certainly not the CFO who once asked if the prototype could be made wireless just for the vibe. Every substantial contribution traced back to Reese Talbot. But that wasn't the most damning part. Deborah opened another window and slid the laptop across the table. A zip folder appeared internal Slack messages, likely leaked by a frustrated junior legal assistant with a conscience and a VPN. Inside one thread, the CFO Howard naturally typed, "She's too nice." Reroute through Derek and Kelly. Low risk of litigation. She won't notice. Another message. Reese is brilliant, but not strategic. She won't fight. Reese's stomach dropped. Her spine stiffened. Not from fear, from fury. She'd suspected they underestimated her. But reading it in black and white, that was something else. Deborah leaned in. They didn't just steal from you, she said. They screwed themselves. You're the originating inventor. The IP trail is clear. Retroactively altering your employment terms. That's not just sleazy. That's fraud. Reese breathed in slow. So what happens now? Deborah slid a set of forms across the table. Now we file a provisional patent under your name. Sole inventor. Private encrypted, time-stamped with forensic backing. They can't argue in court. Reese signed. The pen didn't shake. It roared. The application was airtight. Filed within the hour. Time-stamped. Legally bulletproof. It didn't just claim ownership. It defined it. And Reese. She just pulled the first pin. No one at Langston Core knew. Not legal, not HR, not even Derek Mann, who was currently posting a LinkedIn selfie captioned, "When you're leading innovation and staying humble, not even grind time." Let them have their moment. Let them keep smiling. Reese had planted a mine under their golden platform, and the timer was ticking. Then came the invitation. It hit her inbox with the cheery venom of a holiday card from an ex. You're cordially invited to the public rollout of Project Ember. No acknowledgement of her work, no personal note from leadership. Just a calendar link, a dress code, and a list of honorees that read like a tech bro LinkedIn tribute wall. Derek Mann, Kelly Rowan, CTO Gregory Baines. Not a single mention of Reese. This was their crown jewel. The product launch to end all product launches. Months of prep. Media coverage locked. Investor roundtables scheduled back-to-back. Press kits printed in color. All based on her invention now marketed with a glossy PR spin that had wiped her from existence like a typo in a brochure. But Reese. She wasn't angry anymore. That heat had burned away months ago. Now it was something colder, sharper. Her decision crystallized when a clueless intern accidentally forwarded her the official press packet. She opened it while waiting for her Uber and nearly laughed out loud. There it was, technical visionary Derek Mann. Executive sponsor Gregory Baines. Even a quote from Kelly, the marketing coordinator, about the magic of teamwork. Reese's name appeared once, under Project Support Logistics. Same section as the guy who stocked granola bars during late nights. So she smiled. Then clicked RSVP, yes, I'll attend. With the calm of a woman preparing for a controlled detonation, she forwarded the invite to Deborah. Message, I'll cover your ticket. Bring something red. The plan came together fast. Deborah suggested sending the formal filing notice to coincide with the banquet for maximum impact, minimum warning. I want more, Reese replied. I need the speech list. And the seating chart. Taking the scenic route, Deborah murmured. I prefer the view. Reese didn't bother going through HR. She called Julie, the event coordinator, who still owed her a favor for fixing her wedding slideshow. Julie sent the documents within hours. Speech order. Derek opened. The CEO closed. Perfect. The CTO would speak second. Then, the final toast by the CEO himself, scheduled for 9:05 p.m. sharp, with a $1,000 bottle of champagne imported from a vineyard in the south of France, flown in for the occasion. Reese circled that time slot in red. On the seating chart, the executives were clustered front and center. Investors and media flanked the left wing. 3 tables back, poised and unreadable, sat Deborah Klein, J.D., attending as Reese's unassuming +1, close enough to smell the foie gras, but far enough to watch the fall unfold. For the next 2 weeks, Reese said nothing. She attended meetings. She nodded politely when Derek pitched her logic model to venture capitalists, tripping over acronyms he barely understood. When someone in the hallway asked, "Will we see you at the rollout?" she smiled and replied, "Wouldn't miss it." She even volunteered to help arrange the name cards. But at night in her apartment, she reheated Thai leftovers, set a glass of wine on her windowsill, and practiced standing up without trembling. Practiced the moment when the room would fall into silence, rehearsed it like a ritual. Let them toast. Let them clink their flutes. She wasn't there to ruin the party. She was there to interrupt the finale. The ballroom glittered with eco-themed excess, the kind that screams we support sustainability while plating lobster flown in from Maine and serving champagne chilled by portable ice walls. LED screens flickered with Project Ember logos in serene pastels, like mindfulness apps designed by marketing interns. Reese entered at 7:02 p.m., sharp, poised, precise. Her gown was emerald satin, strong at the shoulders, soft at the waist. Unignorable. Her hair swept up in a style that could cut glass. A quiet smirk hovered on her lips, so subtle you'd miss it unless you were trained to spot blood in the water. The executives noticed her instantly. Some stared. Some swallowed hard. Most said nothing. "Didn't expect to see you," the COO muttered, swirling his drink like he was stirring guilt. "Of course you're here," the CTO added, voice brittle and forced. Derek beamed. "God, you look amazing. Totally killing it tonight." Reese smiled back with the warmth of someone accepting a compliment from the man who'd once taken credit for her senior thesis. At table 11, Deborah sat in crimson, stone-faced, her name tag reading "Guest of R. Talbot." No one paid her any attention. That was about to change. The crowd hushed. Phones rose. Investors leaned forward. Tonight, Derek Mann began. "We celebrate the impossible becoming inevitable. Project Ember isn't just a product, it's a movement. A clean energy revolution born from grit, brilliance, and unmatched synergy." Reese watched unreadable as buzzword after buzzword tumbled from his mouth. Innovative pivot, adaptive systems, modular fail-safe core. Phrases she had written, verbatim. She could hear her original pitch deck playing like Broadway karaoke in a boardroom suit. People clapped. The board nodded in approval. A journalist near the front scribbled notes. Reese took a long sip of wine and didn't blink. Derek closed with a beaming grin and motioned to the CTO. And of course, none of this would have been possible without the visionary leadership that carried us through. Gregory Baines swaggered on stage collar, already damp with nerves, his speech mercifully short. Alignment, vision, agile success. He made a vague joke about late nights and caffeine, which drew polite laughter and a clear eye roll from Deborah. Then, at 9:04 p.m., the ballroom lights dimmed. The MC's voice echoed. "And now, to honor the future of Project Ember, please welcome our fearless CEO, Mr. Darren Calloway." Applause swelled like a rising tide. Darren stepped forward, cufflinks flashing under the chandeliers. His grin gleamed as he held up the $1,000 bottle of vintage champagne like it were some holy relic. He raised the mic, paused, ready to bask. Reese leaned ever so slightly to her left. Deborah Klein stood, unrecognized, uninvited, very, very ready. The champagne bottle tilted skyward, its gold foil catching the light like a promise written in dollars. Darren beamed at the crowd, who had no idea they were seconds away from watching their narrative implode. To the future, he said, voice booming with PR-tested authority. To innovation progress and the unstoppable spirit of Mr. Calloway, Deborah said clearly, stepping forward. I represent Reese Talbot. Heads turned. Effective. This morning, we filed suit for fraud, patent misattribution, and intellectual property theft. We've also submitted a provisional patent naming Ms. Talbot as the sole inventor of the Ember Clean Energy Converter. The music stopped. So did the champagne. The room froze. A glass clinked faintly against a plate. Someone coughed. Another person dropped their phone. Calloway blinked, still holding the champagne aloft, bubbles rising to the neck like a countdown. What he said, not furious, not even confused, just caught. Deborah Klein reached calmly into her structured red bag and pulled out a matching red envelope, thick sealed final. Without waiting for permission, she stepped up onto the stage and handed it directly to him. Her heel struck the platform like a closing gavel. Everything you're currently toasting, she said crisply, belongs to my client, Reese Talbot. That includes your product IP launch materials and the embedded tech framework you just pitched to 3 acquisition boards this week. She paused. Let it settle. Congratulations. You're now marketing a disputed asset. Silence cracked, then whispers, sharp, breathless, urgent. Wait, someone hissed near the investor tables. Isn't the deal with Orion Energy going public on Monday? Another voice. Their stock is tied to Ember. A third. If that patent's under litigation, you could see the math unfolding behind wide eyes, spreadsheets recalculating contracts unraveling mid-thought. The CTO turned pale, sweat blooming at the base of his neck. Derek looked like someone had yanked his battery out. PR reps began whispering into their phones like hostages calling home. Calloway stammered. This is a misunderstanding. There's protocol. Indeed, Deborah said coolly. Which you violated. She turned slightly toward the crowd. We have metadata, time-stamped code, a digital chain of custody proving Ms. Talbot was removed from official filings after initial disclosures. She took a breath, which under U.S. patent law is grounds for immediate injunction. Just then, the cork on the $1,000 champagne bottle finally gave up and popped, its contents foaming over Calloway's hand, spilling onto the microphone in a slow, sticky waterfall. He stood frozen, soaked in his own celebration, while the room spiraled into legal dread. Reese didn't move, didn't gloat, just watched chin-lifted eyes locked on Calloway like a woman watching her old house burn safely from her new front porch. No shouting, no vengeance speech, just silence reclaiming everything they tried to erase. A camera flash snapped just as the foam hit the mic. Calloway's face caught mid-grimace, the bottle suspended like a fallen crown. Reese rose, slowly, heels, clicking like punctuation marks. No mic drop. Just a glance to Deborah, who shouldered her bag and gave Calloway one last nod that might as well have been a burial prayer. They walked out through the service corridor, past the kitchen, past the swinging doors that smelled of rosemary lamb and corporate panic. Outside, the night air was cool and crisp-flavored with exhaust fumes and vindication. Headlights flicked across the pavement. 3 media vans were already parked crooked on the curb, their side doors open, cameras rolling, reporters climbing out with notebooks and phone mics at the ready. Miss Talbot, one woman shouted. Is it true the patent was stolen? Another asked. Do you have a message for Langston's shareholders? Reese didn't stop, didn't smile, didn't blink. She and Deborah slid into the back of a waiting car before the flashes could find her face. The email had gone out that morning, sent from a burner address press list, pulled from a dusty shared drive. Subject line: You may want to be at the Project Ember launch tonight. Inside the car, silence bloomed like a well-watered seed. After a beat, Deborah smoothed her dress and muttered, Well, that went even better than I expected. Reese chuckled. A low, dry, tired sound. The kind that meant the war was over, at least on her side. By Monday, Langston's stock dropped 11%. By Wednesday, it was down 22%. The acquisition deal with Orion Energy was quietly postponed pending review. PR released a vague two-sentence statement. Project Ember is currently under legal evaluation. We are cooperating fully with the process. Internally, chaos reigned. Patent files were locked down. HR froze promotions. Legal began calling former employees at odd hours. By Friday, Reese's personal phone rang. The number was familiar. She let it go to voicemail. Ms. Talbot, this is Diana from the board's legal counsel. We'd like to open a quiet channel for discussion. We believe there's a resolution that protects everyone's interests. Please return our call at your convenience. Reese sat on her couch barefoot in an oversized sweatshirt, tea cold on the coffee table beside her. The TV played a fireplace loop logs, crackling in soft, artificial warmth. She stared out the window at Houston's skyline, blinking like a constellation no longer beyond reach. She didn't smile, didn't cry. She just breathed. Not the kind that fills you up, but the kind that lets something go. Let them rewrite history. She'd already published the ending, and she liked how it sounded in silence. I didn't get here by accident, and I didn't survive it by staying silent. If you watched all the way through, thank you. Not just for hearing my story, but for seeing me when so many others chose not to. I'd love to know what you think. Drop a comment below. Let me know if you've ever been erased, overlooked, or underestimated. Have you ever watched someone take credit for something you built with your own two hands? I want to hear it. We're not just sharing stories here. We're building proof that quiet strength still matters. If there's one piece of advice I'd offer after everything, it's this: never confuse silence with surrender. You can observe. You can bide your time. You can plan. And when the moment comes, you move with purpose. Don't scream. Don't flinch. Just rise and make them remember what they tried to forget. The world is full of people who will take and take until you believe you were never part of the story. Don't let them. Keep your records. Know your worth. Find allies who won't blink when it's time to go to war, not for vengeance, but for truth. And if you're watching this and thinking, maybe I still have a fight left in me, then you do. So hit that like button if Reese reminded you of someone you once were or someone you're about to become. Subscribe to the channel for more stories like this where quiet people make loud comebacks. And to every manager who ever said, don't take it personally, we're taking it professionally. Let's make them spill their coffee in fear. You with me?